And the reason I chose not to go through the standard advanced infantry course with y'all today is because I looked at the roster, and every single person in here has been playing TG infantry longer than me, really. And that goes over things like files and columns
User
and
joined your
basic battle
channel.
drills. So I'm going out on a limb today, and we're going to be doing something a little bit higher level where we take real issues that I think I see and observe in our regular gameplay, and we're going to talk about advanced infantry, but we're going to talk about it in the context of problems that we're still facing now. So a little bit misleading on the form, but now you all know what you're here for today. So getting started on that, this is going to be open discussion, right? We can do this for as long as it's productive. My goal is to get it done in about 35, 40 minutes. But please feel free to jump in. And this is going to be a little bit confusing. This is not just a, well, if this, then that game. This is not a, well, in certain circumstances, it's okay to bend the SOP for this. That's not helpful. My goal is to get y'all to think about the SOP and advanced infantry techniques, right? And think critically about what their true value is and how to apply them to situations, not just necessarily what are they. I know that all of you already know what the SOP is and how to do it. Now we're going to talk about how to use it in game. So, Legal, are you here?
I am.
I first started having this idea about, or thought that we did something wrong with the TGU in the past. I shouldn't say wrong, it's just, I remember we were sitting through a class together, me and Legal were, and we were going over the basic, fix, flank, and finish. And then we go into a game. And, well, I'll go ahead and bring up some illustrations. But anyway, Legal, not to rag on you, but you inspired this first graphic. You may remember the mission. So I'm going to post a link here in TeamSpeak. And I want y'all to look at what you see here. And I have drawn out, or first, let me know when you all see it. You should be looking at a Humvee on a hill overlooking a base with a red and blue line. If anybody doesn't have that, let me know. And I was saying, me and Legal had just gone through a TGU class, and we set up a base of fire where that Humvee was, and then we went and did a big wide right flank. Can anyone tell me, or actually each of y'all will do this, the exercise I want to do. On the count of 3, I want you all to say red or blue on which line you would use to assault this position. 1, 2, 3.
Red.
Red.
See, this is interesting. Now look at this next image.
Do we have to choose from those two?
Give me a second on that, and we'll open it up at the end of this point here.
I'd say it depends, and the picture doesn't do it justice, but what's down there?
Right.
If there's like a 50 cal that's pointing in the direction of that red arrow, then I'd probably go with blue. But if blue...
Sorry, Scout.
Sorry.
Look at this picture here. Does anyone recognize immediately with this crude illustration what I've demonstrated in this drawing, what those red arcs represent?
Fatal funnel.
For the gates.
Very open field of fire.
Right. So that is areas that anywhere in the shadow of suppression can still fire, right? Anywhere behind that wall that the Humvee is facing is not being suppressed to the sides. So I have one more image for you that should bring my point home. And it's pretty obvious. Or predictable, rather. Look at that image. Do we see how the red line, while it looks right on its face, given this particular situation and the way we're thinking about it, you are moving into an area that is not effectively being suppressed. So when we think about things like suppression and flanking and using terrain, it's not just those are things that you should do, but you need to think about, as a leader, right, and as advanced infantrymen, you need to think about what you're actually accomplishing. Yes, moving to the right does feel natural, but all you have done is move into the shadow, right, or out of the shadow of your suppression of fire. So I would say for this situation, given the true effect of what maneuvers you're using, the blue line was the superior line. Does that make sense to everyone?
Sure.
Now, I have to backtrack and not to contradict and things, but this is not a simple what if scenario, right? This isn't, oh, well, what if there was a wall there? What if there wasn't that? Or, what if there was any number of things, any number of what ifs that we can't articulate in a conversation because it'll just go on forever. But the important thing is, this is a classic situation that we do all the time in TG where something looks right,
User joined your
but
channel.
because of its true effectiveness, isn't actually the right move. And if you can start thinking about your SOPs or what they actually bring for you and just not what to do, but what does it do for you? Not which SOP do you do, but which SOP is going to do the most for you. That's how you need to start thinking about these advanced maneuvers. Does that make sense? Am I with everyone?
Yeah.
Okay. Can anyone point out or poke a hole in my reasoning here? Am I off base? Is it resonating?
Yeah, I think it's something obvious that a lot of times we just miss it.
Right, and exactly. So we'll go ahead. Let me just make sure I'm not touching off or skipping anything here.
No, can I get
What's
the
that?
basic premise study, but you also with this move here, right? There would be some type of support by fire position that's covering that Humvee's move, or was this just like, hey, here's this
The
thing down
Humvee.
here?
Sorry, I should have specified this further. The Humvee is the base of fire, right?
Okay.
There, if everyone remembers, I think most people were present for the mission that day. But then you have an assault path using that position of the Humvee with the crew.
Got you.
Right.
I got you. Okay.
Yeah. But really, what I wanted to get away from this instance was that really understand what your movement is doing for you. It's not, in and itself, moving on its side is not ultimately effective. What's effective is moving with your suppression of fire, and that can look many different ways. That's all I wanted to get across. We're going to go ahead and move on now. Pull up another image for y'all. While I'm queuing it up here, basically what it is the situation. Come on. Am I still transmitting for y'all?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just running slow on my end. Situation is that you hit an LZ, you move up to a predetermined overwatch, and you get there only to find out that your overwatch is completely compromised, and the battle plan that you just been making is out the window, and you have to reinvent on the fly here. And I'm going to take that situation, and what I want to focus on in that context is two things: is trade-offs, risk assessment, right, and formations. Again, or what they do for you. So I'll go ahead. My image finally loaded up. If you look at that, you're going to see a Zoo-23 in a compound. The situation is that you LZ'd on the other side of that hill. You climb up the hill and realize, no, we're screwed. This place that was the closest point of attack is now completely useless, and I got to work it out. So that's to give you perspective over the town, and this is the problem that you're now faced with. You're going to have to use your risk assessment, right, your techniques from TGU to make a good decision here. This next image is the same area. The zoo is still in the same place. You can see its arc of fire, and you can see how far out of the way you have to travel now to get it to move up on that location. What I mean when I was mentioning trade-offs earlier, we went to that LZ because it'd be quick, because people want to get into the game and we want to make it enjoyable and we want to be effective. Effective and enjoyable go hand to hand. When you're one, you're also the other. But now we have, almost a kilometer-long movement, and we don't know what's out there because that wasn't part of our briefing, and it wasn't part of our, all we were focused on was this objective here, and we picked the likely LZ. But now we have to adjust, and all the time I see this. We have to decide how long is this going to take us, and what are we going to do it? And there's been times where we'll move in a column where we're bound from tree to tree, and it just takes too long, and it can stall the server out. And it's not just about the server, but it's about, as a leader, thinking about the fatigue of your guys. The other day, it happened in an instance, which is why I chose this example. We took a long time to get rolling on a particular objective, and I was AT guy. And when I finally got up there, I was too eager because I guess subconsciously I was just eager, and I ended up overextending, exposing myself, right? Not using my proper infantry movement, and died and caused a bigger problem for the server. And I don't think that would have happened had I been in the action sooner. So what I want to talk about, tying in assessment, trade-off, now formation, is when you do have to make a big move like this, and you are not in contact, move as quick as you can. We all know the quickest way to move is in a file. Now there is risk there, right? But you have to assess that, weigh the trade-offs, and then go back to your TGU, your basic TGU, and know which formation to use. So for here, the risk is to want to do it right, do it slow, guys get sloppy, and then it turns into disaster near the end. You're going to be more effective, right? And you're going to have more fun on the server if you get your guys into the fight quicker and you just use it by using the proper call. That's all I wanted to talk about with this, but I find this is a very common pitfall in our gameplay, is that we slow down when the risk is low and we speed up when the risk is high. I think a lot of people are guilty on that. Am I resonating here, class?
Oh yeah.
So that's a big one, and it's one of those things where you're doing something. I'm going to use air quotes here. You're doing something wrong, but in the big picture of the mission, you're doing the right thing, and that's really what I wanted to get across in this discussion we're having. Things are not what they seem, and that's what makes this advanced infantry with Sturdy. I know that all of you know. I mean, all of you know that a file is the quickest way to keep track of guys and move. So I thought this would be more useful. Let me see what else I have written down here. Make sure that I'm not skipping over. And I wrote here, when you're a rifleman or a squad leader, TG, right, the group, the server, wants you to be successful in the mission, right? Nobody is looking to dock you, right, for doing something unorthodox, right, or against the books. You know what I mean? You stepped up to lead. You get the benefit to make those decisions, right? So if you do find yourself in a position where you have to make a hard decision like this, right, keep that in the back of your mind and know that everyone here supports you and making these risky movements. You know what I mean? It's necessary for you to make risk assessments, right? And try to get more guys into the fight and be as effective as possible, knowing that, hey, moving in a column here, everyone might get wiped, but you just have to make those decisions, and we want you to make those decisions. I also said everybody here wants you to be an independent thinker, right? We always talk about how we need more leaders, fire team leaders, squad leaders, and whatnot. And whenever you're faced with these sort of situations, just go for it, right? Don't think that you're going to do something wrong because you didn't do it the right way. Just assess the situation, right? Use your basic infantry and have at it. No one's going to come down on you. That was just something I wanted to tack on to the end whenever we're doing these. I don't want to say unorthodox, right? But unusual, right? These adaptations to the SOP. Man, and we were plowing through these real quick, I hate to say, but while I'm grabbing up the next image here, does anybody want to bring or add something to the discussion in terms of having to adapt? That's fine. This is a sorry to cut you off. This is a town in Lithium, and this is another problem identified that we have as a server. And when I say problem, I don't mean these in like we need to never again let this happen, right? Or anything dramatic. I just think that we can elevate our level of play, and people will be in contact, sooner and longer and more successful if we, by putting the time in here to discuss with one another about how best to go about it. But basically, this image, you might be thinking, what am I looking at? This is just the city. If you were just told with the squad to assault this, how would you go about it? And I looked all through the TGU stuff that came before me, and I didn't find much that talked about how do you move and take a large area like this. So if I could get someone to chime in,
Break
there
it
are
into
no wrong
manageable
answers.
sections.
That's one method. What's another method? Be one that we already do in game.
I was thinking about setting up an Overwatch on the hills, and then make a fire team to clear different sectors of the city.
So again, mentioning sectors. What about dots? We use dots all the time.
You could label the buildings, or you could label the blocks.
Right.
Of the city.
What I'm getting
And
at
then
is
you also have to say, if you're only a squad, you can also have to maybe relax the room clearing. Know what you can clear without entering every building by clearing by the windows, and then the buildings you have to actually enter to clear, like top floors. Then there's the ones you'd spend the time in to go through with your team and clear it out properly.
right. All
Yeah.
good stuff. And really, I struggled with this, because I found this was one of the first things I realized, like, this is a big problem, right? Or this is a big question mark that we have in the server. And I looked, and correct me if I'm wrong, Uncle and Demi, guys that have been around here for much longer than I have. Do we have a set SOP for clearing large built-up areas?
It would start off with the melt course that we have. So CQB, basically, and then that would start off with, I don't think it's written down into a formal course, but it would generally start off with a team that would be securing, let's say, the streets and the avenues around a set of buildings, and then a team that would be going through and then clearing those. So you'd have one element giving you security around a particular area, covering your open areas, and then another team moving in through. But it's not formally written down anywhere.
That's all good. And even then, when you said having one team to provide security for an area and another to go in and work it out, the recurring theme that I kept coming up with, and please keep it coming. I'm not going to try to jump too far ahead here, but it all came back in every conversation I had and every time I thought about it and what we should do, like in game context with our community, is it comes down to sectors. And I'll go ahead and post an image here. Pretty predictable, but basically I just have the city cordon off into bite-sized groups. So taking what Uncle just said about setting up security for a certain block or area, and then having another team clear it out. If you're a squad leader or even a fire team leader, right, and you were to draw this up, now it's very easy for you to see, like, okay, if we were to deal with sector 1 in red, you could have one team work out that road that divides the town, and then work your way out, maybe away from center, maybe towards center. Situation doesn't matter, but what it all came down to was dividing it up little by little. So to apply that to what Uncle said, you could have one team divide or provide security for sector 1, another team clear it. But it's the sectoring that makes what he says applicable. As far as dots go, putting dots inside certain sectors make it a lot easier. But the big picture here is still to break it up. I'm trying to think of what else we could do to make attacking cities easier for our server. And on mention of mount, I did find a manual in our TGU that I'll ask here if anybody wants to go over. It does cover some pretty. It's a real world manual. It's not a TG, document, and so it focuses heavily on hallway security and then pieing in the rooms. It also has to do with assigning sectors, again, inside of a room, right, for different guys, and what the proper flow of that should look like. And I just wonder, and I'd like to hear from y'all, one, are you interested? And two, especially from the more veteran players here right now, is it applicable for Arma, right?
From personal experience in actual Army training and play experience in Arma, legitimate Army room clearing tactics are not practical in game. the movement speed isn't fast enough. The reaction time of the AI is too quick. The best option for in-game is peek and clear. So rather than having 4 guys rush into a room where they're going to get immediately shot because they don't move fast enough and the enemy instantly just clicks onto them, you have one guy who peeks the corner to clear left, one guy who peeks the corner to clear right, or one guy who moves across the doorway to peek the whole room before actually entering to fully clear it.
That could be mitigated with better options in the mission, though. Not including mods. I mean, if you could toss grenades or flashbangs or in the corner, I've been in missions where that's helped.
That's
So,
true, but I mean,
But you're right. Just normal vanilla when you're going up the stairway and you're moving even slow to try to keep your head up. Your head's exposed. Top of your head's exposed before you can see the enemy.
Well, there's an actual melt course that's not, again, written down sturdy. And I've just actually finished up the actual mission for it this morning because it was all wonky. So when it's walking through, it's going through those same lessons that you were reading, but it's based, it's kind of like what you're talking about, more based upon how it's useful in game. So I should probably get something up on that, let you run through it and then see what you think of that. But basically it breaks down to doing the same things that Greg was talking about and Demetrius there about using it to peek the corners, but it's more about the other team members also understanding what sectors to cover in the rear so you don't get somebody walking up on you. And so it progressively walks through this course of getting more and more complicated scenarios and more hallways, and until you get into a sort of simulation of it opening up wide open. You've got many different buildings and lots of different sight lines and getting down to that kind of complicated sort of thing. Then the intent was to move on to Altus after that. So I think that's where that breaks down. It's almost like micromanaging by a fire team leader, but it's not necessary. It's a necessary discussion, a necessary point to go through with a team. But then after that, everybody sort of gets the general gist of it, and you can hopefully then do it in a loose way, right?
I suppose there's a rule of thumb that could be mentioned. I mean, for what it's worth, if I ever see players like individually clearing buildings, I commonly ask them to take a buddy team member with them. Because I notice that whenever we stay clear buildings, I mean, if we're thin on players, we need to do it quick. I can see that. But if we've got a squad and one player is disappearing up into a building and they get shot and we don't know, that's just something that I've observed.
Yeah. Well, in buddy teams, it's very hard to find situations, and I actively try to find situations where rules can be
User
bent,
joined your channel.
but a buddy team is almost always a good idea. It's one of the few things I feel like you can rely on, right, in terms of decision making. But
Hey, you were talking a couple slides back about fatigue when you were using the Shilka and you had to make that really wide bound. And you're talking about using there's the right way and then there's the way that maybe we can speed it up because guys get tired. I have that problem when we're doing CQB stuff when, if we were to take this sector and we cleared every right way doctrine, I think that too wears on people, especially if there's no contact. Now, if there's contact, then great, everybody keeps the adrenaline flowing and hey, maybe again the next building we're going to make contact. But if you go through here and there's 3 guys in this whole city or 4 guys, whatever, and you clear every building by doctrine, I think that for some players that wears on them, and then eventually maybe they stop paying attention, and then that's when they get hit by that 1 or 2 guys that are in there somewhere.
100%,
Yeah,
Scout.
you bring up a good point.
That goes right back to we need to be focused on our formations, right? When it's high risk, we need to be relaxed when it's low risk. And those
And there's
risk
no reason.
decisions, those are hard to make, right? Just because you don't know what you don't know. But I do have one more thing written down here that I wanted to bring up because I really feel like this is a weak point for us right now. Is these moving through big areas, and that was one of them. Is if we are just moving through it, right? Because it's in our path, or we want to thin them out, but we don't need it to be 100% clear. We only need it to be, say, 80% clear, or clear enough to where we can move vehicles through it. Let's just say that we started at where the road on Sector 3 comes in, and then we go where Sector 4, where it ends, towards that water tank. There's nothing stopping us, right, from just securing that road. And we don't need to go to the very, far edges of the neighborhoods and blocks to move stuff. I think that was something that we could probably implement more in game. But anyway, this was the most abstract one I had planned to talk about today, and I really was sort of at a loss. So I got some great feedback from y'all, and I'm certainly thinking about it differently now, and I'm really curious about going forward and maybe doing it just a dedicated mount, town
User in your
assault
channel timed out.
TGU next.
From a developer standpoint, maybe we could help out with that a little bit. Uncle, I know you were working on a method to try to, I mean, just for what it's worth, one of the problems
User
that we
joined
have
your
with
channel.
making missions is the civilians or not civilians, but AI are terribly inefficient in terms of telling them where to go or staying within a certain area. I know Uncle was working on something. I don't know how far you got with it, or if we can find another method through our own development methods. But maybe we could find a way where we could satisfy what Scott was saying, which is we just don't know. If we could be sure that, I guess, in this group of buildings we're going to have contacts, so it'll be worth the while for the demonstration at least. I think that could help.
Already
with the
written. It's
immersion.
already on the server.
Yeah.
It already
You
works.
got it. Okay.
Alrighty. So lastly, just to update, we're right at the 30-minute mark on the TGU class. This is really kind of where I wanted to leave it. It was right on topic. I feel like I could just go and keep talking to you guys and bring up more images and continue to be productive with this. However, that's all I have as far as images go. We can go back through if y'all would like and really sort of dig into these, but that honestly, I hate to say it, but that is what I have. And what you did today was you gave me a really good feel for, I think, where we're at TGU class as far as also as what you want. And I hope that these 3 scenarios I identified, I really hope that y'all had the same thoughts when you think about what do we do to improve our game, that these really were the big issues that I think we're having. And I think TGU, sorry, a little bit of rant coming on here, but TGU definitely needs to be a building blocks facet, right, to keep getting new players up to speed. But TGU could also be used, right, to move us forward, right, to focus the stuff that all the veterans deal with too, right? It doesn't have to just be for new players. It can be for all of us. I don't want y'all to feel like you come here just to support Sturdy. You know what I mean? To listen to me about something you already know. I really want to give y'all something that maybe you haven't considered yet. But that's all I have. I would also like to say though that if there is something on your mind right now over what we talked about here, or there's something in particular on the picture that this is the time I want to open it up for input, something maybe I wasn't anticipating.
Actually, I was thinking of something. If we were to move from point A, that's a city, to point B, another city, and there's a city in between, and that city in between has enemies occupied. And this goes back to the point of clearing buildings in the cities. Sometimes I think that we have to clear all the buildings, but it's obviously wrong. And so I want to know what your take is on clearing buildings, but we're not in the objective area. We're supposed to be in another objective. You know what I mean? But it's on the pathway.
So, with conversations like that, I'm just going to address it like on individual points, and then you're going to have to put them together. But from a fatigue standpoint, it matters, right? And I don't mean fatigue is like we got to make sure our guys have fun. I mean, you need to make sure that your guys are as effective as possible, and that there's as many rifles in the fight at any one time, and and simply skirting the city or clearing empty rooms doesn't get you that. As far as risk assessment goes, let's say you're moving through a city with dismounted, right? And there could be snipers and things of that. Maybe that's a risk that you're facing in that particular scenario. Spacing, right? Mitigate your risk, right? But you're not slowing down your movement. If you do take a contact, awesome. Now you get to have an awesome ambush experience. You get to detach your squad column. The fire team in the rear gets to go deal with the sniper. Your other team provides security, and then the team that got hit gets to get their wounded up.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one way to handle it without having to go through it all. Like I had written here on a note, says don't fix a problem until there is one. And when I was thinking about that, I was thinking about the TGU and I don't want to go over stuff that isn't relevant. But same thing applies when you're a rifleman or a squad leader or a fire team leader or CO. Don't don't fix something if there isn't already a problem. We would be more than happy, right? Everyone in the server, I think, to be moving through and get some awesome contact from the side. And as long as you take the right precautions, right, and assessment to make sure it's not a mass cas or a wipe, it's going to be fun. That's how I would address something like that.
Can you explain how that has to do with old TGU content? I'm confused.
We're using TGU content, right, to make these decisions, so it is very relevant. Like the squad column. Where the old TGU content stopped, and where I'm trying to take this further, and please everyone let me know if I'm off the mark here, is I want to talk about specifically with the real scenarios that we see on a regular basis on a server, is how do we better apply that old TGU content, not just reapply the lesson of the content. Because I'm looking at everyone on the list here, and most people here have more time in server than I do. Do you know what I mean when I say that, Uncle?
I do, yeah. That was the new format that we were looking for, which you've picked up the ball and taken. That new format was supposed to be rolled out last year, so thank you for getting it going. But yeah, so it's not a direct reflection on that. See, old TGU content, let's say as far as the squad column goes, the idea behind teaching it that was actually to get into the idea of two different fire teams, sort of controlling their sectors of fire and their balance of more effective weapons, like AR on one side on the first team and the AR on the other side on the traveling team that falls from behind them. Just to get into that discussion. Not that we actually expect that is going to be useful at all points through all of our gaming experience, and we should travel everywhere in a squad column, indeed.
Absolutely. Let me just also expand upon this. This is my expectation for people in server, right? Is that y'all play a lot of Arma, and I believe that we all know which side to balance our casualty producing weapons, right? Where to put the medic. And I'll use an example that proves this, and I think that when we are not seeing it, and this is from my brief observation here, is that it's a casual thing and it's not an unknown thing. I think that if we wanted to play like that, then we could, and we do. And an example when we do is just today we fired up a Zeus mission. John, we were online pushing up a slight incline. No one said anything to him. He was in the right spot. Everyone had their correct sector fire. I know a line's pretty simple, but I really believe that people here in our server are some of the best tactical Arma players in the game. So I would definitely want to keep that conversation of how it should be done up, but I also want to make time, right, and specifically focus of how to apply them going forward too. So maybe next go round we do go with the old nuts and bolts refresher for everybody here, but it's my belief and my observation, and I guess we'll know here shortly in the next coming games, is how well we actually do what I think we already know. Just like one more point I wanted to throw out, there was a conversation, legal, Dylan, we were in a Humvee, and I didn't give anybody any commands whatsoever about what equipment to take to go do this mission, and we had zero intel about what our mission was. I get in there and I just said, did anyone bring anything fun to play with, right? And we had disposable AT, we had anti-air, we had a medic, and we had an AR. And someone says like, wow, a completely balanced squad. And I said, and I didn't say anything. And it just sort of reinforced what I believe is that we really are top-notch players here. And now we can elevate our game, right, by thinking about how we use this stuff in a more applicable way if we just simply start doing it. Now, I've gone way off the rails, but that is the direction that I'm trying to go forward and that I think. And please lay it on now. I'm going to stop talking if I've missed anything or if I've misinterpreted any reads or assessments.
No, not at all, I don't think. It takes concentration to do everything that we expect, and I think this is one of those games where it's worth it to put that much thought into it.
Common sense, for the sake of doing something textbook or as you were taught in the class, or SOP. You have to be able to allow the situation to dictate and be flexible enough if that flexibility makes common sense. And by common sense, I mean not getting you or the team killed.
Right.
And sometimes we can do something just for the sake because it has to be done this way because the schematic showed. And in reality, it's not the correct thing to do because the situation is dictating otherwise, but we're failing to read that.
That he hit the, and I'm not going to let this keep going about, we got to be smart, we got to apply, but just if you take anything away, hang on a second, Scott. If you take anything away today, guys, I just want you all to really think that whenever you go through your certain movements and whatnot, think about what you're actually getting out of them. You know what I mean? That's all I want. If you really think about what you're actually doing and is it the right thing to do, then you're thinking correctly. I can't tell you what the right decision is going to be, and neither can the SOP, right? But it's important to have a standard to start from, right? It's equally important to understand what it gives you. And closing things, since we're already 40 minutes in, I was going to say two things I wanted to do next. And Uncle, I'm sure I'll be talking with you a lot on this, is do we want to focus next on mount, or do we want to go for mechanized? Because I think both those areas are weak for us.
I would say, yeah, both are very useful. Tank DLC is coming out, so mechanized might be something that we want to look at.
Can I get a yay in chat if we agree?
Yay on mechanized.
Mechanized.
Fires a yay.
So by mechanized, you just mean how infantry acts with armor, or you gonna go over armor cooperation in general?
It should be yes to both of those, yeah.
Yes to both of those. It's really challenging, because I do want to keep adding more TGU content, but it's very tricky not to contradict, right? And to make sure that you have a good starting point. I don't want to write something, you know what I mean, or suggest something that we only, find out later on to be ineffective, right, or counterproductive. That is very dangerous. So it takes a little while to get it done, but I definitely think that it's a direction we should be thinking. And I'll be asking on help from everyone in channel, really, on what we should do. And we got a lot of talent here, so I don't think it'll be too big an issue at the same time. We just got to make sure we do it right.
Yeah, I think we can do a lot of that with brainstorming sessions, like this kind of is, in a bit of a way. And that would be awesome for us to do.
Yeah, I also wanted to point out, a couple days ago, I put up in server, I said, talking tactics, you know what I mean? And like 8 people just came in and started shooting the breeze about what they thought, we need to do on the server, or how we can be more tier 1 and whatnot. And I don't know if that falls into TGU, but I would really like to have a chance to get to talk like this and really give other people the microphone, you know what I mean? And try to gel, right? And get where we can operate with one another without a lot of planning required. Like, for instance, people I play a lot with, me and Scout, me and Fire, me and Legal, we play a lot together, and Vinny as well. And we really can do things without much coordination because we're definitely thinking on the same page. And if we could somehow facilitate that for the larger group, the larger team, I really think we could be like a premier Arma server. Thanks for coming out, guys. I'll see you next time.
Thanks for your time,
Thank you, Sturdy.
Bye.
Thanks, Sturdy.
Thank you. Love you.
Yeah.
That's a little too
User
personal.
disconnected from your channel.
I think we have a policy on that, Drew.
It's another TGU lesson.
Don't tell.
And I'm kind of hurt because you told me you love me.
He told me that too.
He told me as well, mate.
Oh, man. He runs off.
Can I stand on the rock now?
Nope.
Nope.
User left your channel.